My mother leaned across the kitchen table and whispered, "You can make this disappear." I stared at her. Outside, cicadas buzzed in the August heat, while the ceiling fan clicked overhead. The screen door tapped softly against its frame, and somewhere down the road, a dog barked twice. My sister Rachel sat beside Mom with both hands wrapped around a glass of sweet tea. She looked pale. "What happened?" I asked. Mom glanced toward the window. Rachel hit somebody with her car. For a moment, nobody moved. Rachel had called me less than an hour earlier, asking me to come home. She had said there had been an accident near the grocery store. Now I understood why. Is the man alive? Mom's mouth tightened. He's at the hospital. Then, we need to find out how badly he's hurt. That isn't the point. I looked at her. What is the point? Mom leaned closer. You need to tell them you were driving. I thought I had heard her wrong. Excuse me? You can take care of this. Nobody has to know it was Rachel. I slowly set my purse on the floor. Why would I lie about that? Mom looked toward my sister. Rachel kept her eyes down. For 12 years, I had kept my profession separate from my family. They believed I worked in legal administration in Nashville. They knew I spent long hours reading documents and traveling for work. But they had never asked many questions. And I had never volunteered the truth. I was a federal judge. I had deliberately kept that fact private because I wanted to remain their daughter. Sister and aunt. I didn't want every family disagreement turning into a request for legal advice or a favor. Mom had somehow discovered it. And now I understood why she had. You think my position means I can make a criminal investigation disappear? Mom's expression hardened. I think you know how the system works. No, I said quietly. I know exactly how it works. Rachel finally looked at me. Please, I studied her face. Rachel, what aren't you telling me? Her lower lip trembled. Mom reached for her hand. That small gesture told me more than either of them had said. I stood. Start from the beginning. Rachel took a breath. Then my phone rang. The number on the screen belonged to the hospital, I answered. A nurse asked if I was related to Rachel. Yes, she paused. Then she said, The injured man has been asking for you by name. I felt the room go silent behind me. Why? The nurse lowered her voice. He says he knows who was driving. Rachel finally told me what happened. She had been driving home from the grocery store when a man stepped into the road near the parking lot. She said she braked but couldn't stop in time. The man was knocked down, and a witness called 911. Rachel panicked. Then Mom told her to call me. I listened without interrupting. Did you stay at the scene? I asked. Rachel nodded. Did you call the police? Yes. Did you give them your name? She hesitated. Yes. That answer bothered me. If you already gave them your name, why does Mom want me to take the blame? Neither answered. I walked to the kitchen window. Across the road, an old pickup sat beside a mailbox. A sprinkler clicked over freshly cut grass. Where is the man? I asked. The hospital, Mom said. His condition? They said he's conscious. I let out a slow breath. Then Rachel needs an attorney. Mom's face hardened. We don't need lawyers. I looked at her. That isn't right. My mother had always believed problems became smaller if you refused to give them proper names. But someone had been injured, and this wasn't something a family could settle around a kitchen table. There could be medical bills, insurance claims, witnesses, police reports, and legal consequences. None of it would disappear because I lied. Mom stood. You've always been the sensible one. I know. Then, be sensible now. I looked at Rachel. She was staring at the floor. Rachel, did you have anything to drink? Her eyes filled with tears. Mom answered for her. No, I said nothing. I had heard that tone before. It was the tone people used when they wanted a conversation to end, before the truth arrived. I picked up my purse. I'll help you find an attorney. Mom grabbed my arm. You don't understand. I looked at her hand until she released it. No, I said. I think I'm beginning to understand perfectly. My phone rang again before either of them could answer. It was the hospital. The nurse asked whether I was the woman who knew Harold Bennett. I froze. Harold had lived 3 streets from our childhood home. Why is he asking for me? The nurse hesitated. He says he knows who was driving. I looked at Rachel. Her face had gone completely white. Suddenly, I understood why Mom had wanted me to lie before anyone had asked questions. She wasn't protecting Rachel from the truth. She was protecting Rachel from someone who had already seen it. I had spent years learning that small details mattered. That habit was about to become very important. I just didn't know how important yet. I drove to the hospital alone. The August heat had settled over town, and the parking lot shimmered beneath the afternoon sun. Harold Bennett was in a quiet room near the end of the hallway. His face was bruised, one arm rested in a sling, and a small bandage covered his forehead. When I entered, he looked at me for several seconds before speaking. "You're Judge Carter," I nodded. His expression changed. "Why did your sister tell the police you were driving?" I sat down slowly. "She did what?" Harold reached for his phone. "There was someone across the parking lot." He opened a photograph and handed it to me. It was blurry but clear enough. Rachel's car was visible near the entrance. So was Rachel. She was behind the windshield, driving. Harold had taken the picture seconds before he was struck. Then he showed me another photograph. A woman stood near the grocery store entrance. My mother. I stared at the image. "Why did you take these?" Harold adjusted his pillow. "Because your mother came running over after the accident." I waited. "She told Rachel not to say anything until you arrived." I felt my jaw tighten. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't panic. Someone had already decided what story they wanted. Harold watched me carefully. "Judge, what are you going to do?" I looked at the photograph again. "I'm going to tell the truth." He nodded once. "That's what I hoped you'd say." I thanked him and left the hospital. On the drive home, I kept thinking about the photograph. Mom had been there. She had seen Rachel behind the wheel. She had spoken to her before I arrived. Yet she had still asked me to accept responsibility. When I reached home, the house was quiet. Rachel's car wasn't in the driveway. Mom's truck wasn't there either. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The kitchen looked exactly as I had left it. The same coffee maker, the same family photographs, the same wooden table where Mom had asked me to lie. Then I noticed something sitting in the center of the table. A yellow envelope. My mother's handwriting was across the front. I opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten statement claiming I had been driving Rachel's car. There was a date and my mother's signature. I read the first sentence twice. Then I noticed the date. My hands went cold. The statement had been written 2 days before the accident. I sat down. This wasn't a story created in panic after Harold was injured. Mom had prepared it beforehand. She had planned for me to take the blame. I reached for my phone, but before I could make the call, the front door opened. Mom walked inside. She saw the envelope on the table. Then she looked at me. "You found it," she said. I nodded. "Why did you write this?" She closed the door behind her. Then she finally told me the truth. Mom stood beside the kitchen table, looking at the statement I had found. "You found it," she said. I nodded. She didn't apologize. Instead, she pulled out a chair and sat down. "You don't understand what was happening." I kept my voice steady. "I understand that you wrote a false statement 2 days before the accident." She looked toward the window. "Rachel was scared. So you plan to blame me?" Mom folded her hands. "You're the one person who could handle it." I almost laughed. "That isn't an answer." She finally looked at me. "You've always had power. You just never told us how much." The room went quiet. For years, I had kept my position private because I wanted to be treated like a daughter, not someone who could solve everyone's problems. Mom had discovered the truth somehow. She had learned I was a federal judge, and instead of being proud, she had seen an opportunity. "How did you find out?" I asked. Mom didn't answer. "It doesn't matter," she said. "What matters is that you can protect your sister." "No, what matters is that someone was injured." Rachel came through the door a few minutes later. She stopped when she saw the statement. "Mom told me it was already taken care of," she whispered. I looked at her. "Rachel, did you know she had prepared this?" Rachel shook her head. "No, I knew she wanted you to take responsibility." "But I didn't know about the paper," Mom interrupted. "You're making your sister look guilty." I turned toward her. "She is responsible for hitting Harold. That doesn't make her a bad person. Lying about it makes everything worse." Rachel began crying. "I never meant for him to get hurt." "I believe you." She looked surprised. But you still have to accept what happened. Mom stood. You could end this. No. You could make one phone call. No. You're my daughter. I looked at her for a long moment. And that is exactly why this hurts. I placed the statement into a folder. I will not use my position to protect Rachel. I won't use it to hurt her either. She will receive the same process anyone else would receive. Mom's shoulders dropped. For the first time, she seemed to understand that I wasn't going to be persuaded. The next morning, Rachel hired an attorney. I gave the attorney the photograph, the hospital information, and my mother's statement. Then I stepped back. I thought that was the end of the family betrayal. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, Harold's attorney called me. He said they had found something on the security footage, something neither my mother nor Rachel had mentioned. And it completely changed what I believed about that night. The security footage showed what happened that evening. Harold had been crossing near the grocery store entrance when Rachel's car came around the corner. She was driving too fast. She braked, but not soon enough. The footage showed there had been no sudden movement from Harold. That could explain everything Rachel had claimed. More importantly, it showed Mom arriving within minutes. She spoke to Rachel, then stepped away and made a phone call. That call led investigators to another piece of evidence. Mom had contacted a family friend who worked at the insurance office handling Rachel's policy. She asked how the accident could be reported without Rachel being listed as the driver. He refused to help her. He later cooperated with the investigation. The evidence was clear. Rachel had caused the accident. Mom had tried to create a false story afterward, and I had been chosen to carry the blame. Rachel eventually accepted responsibility. She cooperated with the investigation and followed her attorney's advice. Harold recovered after several difficult weeks. There was no dramatic courtroom scene, no screaming, no family member being dragged away in handcuffs. There were simply consequences. Rachel's insurance handled the appropriate claims, and she faced the legal process connected to the accident. Mom stopped calling me. Then weeks later, she left a message. I was trying to protect your sister. I listened to it twice. Another message came the next day. I thought you would understand. I didn't answer. Eventually, Rachel came to my house. We sat on the porch with glasses of sweet tea while crickets sounded in the grass. I'm sorry, she said. I know. I should have told the truth. Immediately. Yes. She looked down at her glass. Do you hate me? No. She seemed surprised. I just don't trust you yet. She nodded. That was all I could give her. Trust isn't something family members are entitled to simply because they share your blood. It has to be earned. Months later, Harold sent me a handwritten letter. He thanked me for refusing to lie. I kept that letter beside an old family photograph. I still loved my mother. I still loved my sister. But I no longer confused love with obedience. For years, I had hidden my career because I wanted my family to see me as their daughter. In the end, I learned something I should have known all along. Keeping my title secret had never been the thing protecting my family. The truth was, and sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do for the people she loves is refuse to carry their lie. Love can survive disappointment. It can survive distance, but trust can only survive the truth. And once I understood that, I stopped being afraid of what my family thought of me.